All right, so let me get into this topic real quick, and then I'll start bringing some people on. So, about Juneteenth. Now, when I first heard that Congress was trying to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, I had no problem with it. I really had no problem with it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I know it's something that Trump talked about, and I know it's something that they tried to actually get passed before. So it wasn't really a big thing to me. It's like, okay, cool, we'll make Juneteenth a federal holiday. But the thing that I believe triggered a lot of Republicans to be against it was the wording, was the messaging behind Juneteenth. So it's not like Republicans are against Juneteenth being a federal holiday because Republicans don't like black people or Republicans don't want to celebrate the end of slavery. That's not it. The problem is the messaging behind it. So they named Juneteenth National Independence Day. So with this federal holiday, you have Juneteenth designated as National Independence Day. We already have an Independence Day. The 4th of July is our Independence Day. So what Democrats are trying to do by calling it National Independence Day is say that, well, black people can't celebrate the 4th of July because they weren't independent on the 4th of July. So when they're bringing this up, they're really trying to tell you that Juneteenth is actually Independence Day for everybody. So you have a divide, right? You have one group of people who feels like their Independence Day is Juneteenth. You have another group of people who feels like their Independence Day is July 4th. That creates segregation. That creates further racial division within this country. And I'm happy that there are some Republicans that stood up to that. I'm sad that more Republicans didn't stand up to that. I'm sad that more Republicans didn't call this out and say, hey, we won't sign on to this until you take the National Independence Day part off of this bill. Because it's very, very divisive. Independence Day is about the birth of our nation, right? So unfortunately, there are people in our nation who were slaves. But it was the birth of that nation that set things in motion for those people who were slaves to be free. If it wasn't for that, would they still be slaves? I don't know. Maybe. But our great nation is what set the wheels in motion to end slavery. So when we celebrate the 4th of July, we can actually celebrate the birth of the nation who was like one of the key players to end slavery for the rest of the world. That's what America is. So that's how we should think about the 4th of July. That's how we should think about our Independence Day. Because it is Independence Day for everyone. Juneteenth is not Independence Day. Just because people were freed from slavery, if there was no America to live in, those slaves wouldn't have been able to flourish in the country that we live in today. The descendants of those slaves are doctors, are lawyers, are business people, CEOs of companies. We're starting our own companies. We're millionaires. We're athletes. We're doing such great things because of this country. There is no better place to be in the world for a black person than the United States of America. And that country was born on the 4th of July. So I don't want to hear anything about Juneteenth being the real Independence Day because it's not. It's not. Our country was born on the 4th of July. So I will always celebrate the 4th of July. Now, I may celebrate Juneteenth too. And I have celebrated in the past. But you know the crazy thing about Juneteenth for black people? So, as you can tell, I'm a black person. I've been a black person for 39 years, right? Out of all those 39 years, I only celebrated Juneteenth like 4 or 5 years ago for the first time. My parents didn't celebrate Juneteenth. My grandparents didn't celebrate Juneteenth. Yes, we were in Louisiana, and it's supposed to be a Texas holiday, but if it marks the end of slavery, there is no other holiday that commemorates that. So Juneteenth would have been the thing for every black person in the entire country to celebrate as the end of slavery. But we never celebrated Juneteenth in my family. And growing up, I knew no families that celebrated Juneteenth. And Juneteenth has been a thing since 1866. So why is it that we're all of a sudden celebrating Juneteenth or talking about Juneteenth right now? There was nothing stopping black people from celebrating Juneteenth all these years. That's a black holiday, right? It's the day that slaves were set free. Well, in Texas. But that's a black holiday. So why weren't any black people celebrating Juneteenth? Now, it's probably a few. But why weren't the majority of black people celebrating Juneteenth all these years? Why did it take our government to make Juneteenth important for black people? Because they say slavery was the travesty of a lifetime, or the travesty of the world. But when it ended, we don't celebrate that. We gotta have people tell us to celebrate that. Why do we have to have people tell us to celebrate this glorious occasion? I don't get it. I wish, as a people, we could stand on our own a little better than we do. I wish we didn't have to look to fads and trends to tell us what to do as a people. I wish we just thought of what is the right thing to do in every situation and just followed that. Juneteenth didn't have to be a federal holiday for black people to be celebrating this holiday, because it hasn't been happening. I had a group of friends, and this was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and I celebrated Juneteenth, and I posted pictures of Juneteenth and what I was doing, and they laughed at me. They thought it was silly. They didn't celebrate Juneteenth. They thought it was silly that I was. And this was before the government was even talking about making Juneteenth a holiday. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. I don't need anybody to tell me what holidays or what special occasions I need to celebrate. I'm my own person. And I need every black person out there to be their own person. We don't need a social media push for everybody to start celebrating Juneteenth. We don't. If it's important to you, it would be important to you no matter what the government does, no matter what your friends do, no matter what anybody does, no matter what you see on social media. It should be important to you regardless. But the fact that you didn't care until the government talked about it, until the government made it a national holiday, you didn't care until that means you really don't care. It's not important to you. And part of the reason is you would rather talk about the atrocities of slavery than celebrate the end of slavery. To talk about the end of slavery is not in your agenda, because you want to see that it's still going on today. You want to push that narrative that it's still happening today. We are still slaves. That's what I heard someone say today. And I actually read it too. We're still slaves in America. Black people are still slaves in America. How the are we still slaves in America? I can do whatever I damn well please in this country, and there's nobody stopping me. So how am I a slave? Y'all need to go watch some slave movies so you can get a feel for what was going on back then. Because then you would actually appreciate what you have today.